this is the Treaty Creek story for the Goldstorm deposit. It's a relatively new discovery. It's something that we'll be making some forward-looking statements, so if you're looking for a deal, you've come to the right place. We'll see. This will be the good update of what we've done for the last 4 years, but more in particular, the last 2 years for the resource update. So typically it's a great location for geopolitical reasons, but more importantly, it's a plug-and-play district. We've got all the necessary infrastructure required to pull off a rather successful mining venture. Typical is including First Nation support at the bottom of the slide, but proximity to the infrastructure is really important. It's not so distant that you don't have any issues with issues with communities. They're abandoned communities about 3 hours away at, say, Stewart as a drive, if you were to drive from the project once we do get a road in. But it's about, our cutoff point is about an hour and a half off the highway from Stewart, but 3.5 hours, 4-hour drive from, say, Stewart, or, Terrace or Smithers. So lots of places to have workers. But more importantly, it is a fairly tightly held company. It's a $220 million market cap, approximately. Eric Sprott came on board in 2019, has been a vehement shareholder since, and he loves the project. I think he's a very astute person that recognizes potential when he sees it. The other aspect of the company is I brought a lot of my people I work with in the past with me, Ken McNaughton, Joe Ofsnick, ex-Silver Standard people, myself included Silver Standard, and we spun out with Bob Quartermain to create Pretium, which was a success story at Bruce Jack Lake. That was a good run of, it was probably the fastest 7 years of my life. And we're repeating history as we speak again with the next discovery. So going forward again, we have a lot of year-round water. That's really important in any deposit jurisdiction. You've got access to a deposit for a 20-kilometer road is almost connected by way of Seabridge, power line, Northwest Transmission Line, cheapest hydroelectric power in North America. Air access, plenty of airstrips around, either at Smithers Terrace or Bob Quinn. Export facilities, deep sea ports, things like odd-shaped sizes, weird things like huge towers, comminution, sag mills, that sort of thing. Tahltan agreement, First Nations is really important to us. We're signed up with Tahltan. We have good working arrangements with agreements with also Skika and people from the Gitxsan. Very, very hardworking people. We enjoy having them on site, working with them. We are on the chain of deposits located immediately northeast of KSM. So from the bottom, it's the sulfurettes tread that actually is the same geometallic alignment for the structure for sure. The sulfurettes thrust, really important. Mitchell thrust as well. So we have the analog. We call them Treaty Thrust Fault 1 and Treaty Thrust Fault 2 for nomenclature. We think they're genetically associated to those deposits, and we have a very, very strong, robust-looking deposit that's in the making. We'll examine that closely. So when you actually look at the location distribution, everybody can see there's a very distinct spacing. 2.5 kilometers is roughly the epicenter of every one of those deposits going forward on that northeastern alignment. But Perfect Storm was a recent discovery. We've confirmed that from previous drilling, but just as of last week was a nice press release we put out with a hole that hit 102.15 meters of 1.28 gold equivalent. It's mostly gold, silver. Typically copper occurs deeper in the system. And this will be part of that story, how we evolve basically the resource. So when we came on scene, it was the left slide was what was presented in front of us. To the left, it was a hole. The furthest hole to the northwest or northeast of that slide was unlike the others, and we acted on that and basically turned it into what is now known as the Goldstorm deposit, made up of 4 domains, very important domains, only one of which is a copper-rich domain. Initially, we put out a resource after 2 years of drilling, and that resource was a 19.4 million ounce gold resource with 0.74, so 3/4 of a gram. And we took it to our engineers and we asked them, what do you think? And they looked at it and said, well, for where you're at, where your location, you'd be better being north of a gram. So even though the Detour mine is started out being 1.02, Gold, it's now cutting 0.89 at the head. So we would like to be north of that 1 gram. So we embarked in the next 2 years, reverse engineered all of basically our exploration plans to chase only the high grade. So we had this 800,000 or 800 million ton deposit. We put it on a diet and came up with a new resource. And the resultant was we came out with about 640 million tons. But the grades went way up, and so did the ounce count. So we're now standing at, the official count is 23.4 million ounces of gold equivalent, with another further about 7.35 out there. So very important looking resource that we've got coming on side. But the important takeaway from this was, when we did the cutoffs, we increased the cutoffs. The old cutoff used to be a 0.3 on the pit, but what we did is we raised ours to a 0.5. So not only raising the 0.5 on the in-pit, out of pit, which was sublevel block cave, the typical grade that is used in the area is about 0.35. We doubled it. We went to about a 0.7. Our old resource was at a 0.46, even higher than the allowable 0.35. So given that, we were still sitting there with 1.13 basically gram per ton gold equivalent. But I wasn't satisfied with that. As explorationists, we're never satisfied. We always want to do better. We always take something and say, you know, that's good, but we could do better. And we did. We actually ran the numbers to 1 gram cutoff. Not that we would, but we just, to demonstrate you, see how robust is that resource. So going back to the numbers at 1 gram, so it's kind of hard to see here, but it is, right here, is that one line. So coming across, you'll see the tons do drop off, 320 million tons, that's fine, but 15.2 million ounces are still there. Not a slouch, still strong. And even more so, when you look at the bottom, 3.8 million ounces of gold. So you're back to my 19.4 I started with, but here's the takeaway. It's no longer 0.74. Magically, we're at 1.48. We've doubled it. So not only did we take 200 million tons off the deposit, we've turned around and we've actually applied a much higher grade. We have the ability to actually double the grade. So that's impressive. I don't know anybody else who actually tries to expand a resource does that. You typically go the other way. You either increase more ounces and you drop the grade invariably. Not here. Strength of deposit, this is it. This is the anatomy of basically the Goldstone deposit. 4 domains. The blue is copper bell, the red is 300 horizon, gold dominant, with the yellow gold dominant as well. That's the deepest. The yellow is the DS5, but the orange is what we really concentrated on. That's the one thing that was the game changer, because we pivoted, we adapted, we started hunting copper. That was the one element or the one domain in the deposit that does have appreciable copper, significant copper. When you see our global numbers, you'll see a 0.15 copper average. That's because it gets smeared with a 2 gold dominant without any copper. It gets smeared out and dilutes down to 0.15. However, if you look at the specific numbers of the drill indicated resource, they're sitting at 0.32% copper with another on the inferred 0.36. What that tells me, like the very first resource, we started with 0.74 on the drill indicated, but the inferred was 0.79. We knew we hadn't come through the mass of the project, because those outreaching holes, those outlier holes were stronger. Likewise, these were much stronger. The copper is getting stronger as we're advancing the project to the north. And keep in mind, all this is open, nothing is closed off. Out of 180 drill holes, only 2 have not hit ore. So with that being said, we went ahead and actually expanded the resource from what was basically no copper to 2.8 billion pounds of copper. My forward-looking statement is, my estimate geologically, I think we're going to try and hit 4 billion pounds is the thing. And silver's no slouch. Being a silver standard guy, my goal was to find 200 million ounces of silver in a deposit. We've got 160 million ounces with this one. I think we'll get it close to 200 million ounces. So on the 3 metals, very impressive. I hope to hit 27 million ounces gold only, so I can put on a t-shirt, world's largest discovery in 3 decades. This is going to be it, so we'll see. So looking at them independently, have a look at the 300 horizon. At surface, this will be a small pit. Starter pit, well, small, it's relative. It'll be big. But look at the grades. 2.12 gold equivalent over 348 meters. So there's a variability to this thing. So what happens is, when in a pit scenario, if you come across areas that are lower grade, well, you just take the higher grade. You put that through the mill as fast as you can, pay down your CapEx as quick as possible. This is what I love about this economic aspect. You have variability that you can play with. This CS600, Copper Stream 600 meters away from that upper contact TTF 1. The interesting thing about this is if you run down the scroll, the numbers of the red copper, so if we start with, say, the upper one at 0.3, that's to the south, running all the way to the middle of the deposit here, there's 0.53% copper. Yep, that's not a misprint, that is 732 meters. This did not make the resource, I'll explain. It was a lone wolf, it's out there by itself. This actually was the springboard, or we sprung the success of the 2003 program based on this hit in 2022. We finished that hole. We started in 2021, completed in 2022, but it did not make the drill indicated resource. It was inferred only. But the point that I'm making of the slide is specifically the grades of the gold are steady and holding at the end. So we still haven't yet to come through the eye of the storm here, if you will. So that's an important feature when you actually are designing your drill programs going forward. How fast and furious can you go? Well, here's what happened. This is the thing that did not make the resource. The upper portion, yeah, it did. This upper portion of the 300 horizon, that basically was 456 meters of 1.35 grams gold right at surface, basically, or just underneath the surface. Is kind of plunging a bit. But the killer number there is the combined composites of the two domains. Literally, it still blows me away to look at that number, 1,497.5 meters of 1.12. This is like an impossibility in the geological world to get something that's over a kilometer with a consistent gram. I've done it before where I've gotten basically a kilo, 1,000 grams over a meter, but to do it the other way, go a full kilometer, 1,000 meters to get a gram consistently, that's tough. We've done it several times on this project. Very rare deposit. And here's the big one, CS600, 732 meters of 1.6. This is what's happening at depth. This thing is increasing at grade at the bottom, and it continues to be open at bottom. Even DS5, the least known of all the domains, even that one, if you went back to that, the anatomy of the deposits, that one is 1.32 with a 1.37, getting stronger in the drill indicated because the drill inferred, because we've not gotten through the strongest part of that system. So we have a little bit of work still ahead of ourselves, even after 4 years. So going forward, this slide really demonstrates something really important. On the last one, we demonstrated if king is grade. Any deposit, grade is king, absolutely. But on this one, if grade is king, consistency is queen. So I want to bring your attention to the two on the right-hand side of the slide, the two numbers here. They're basically identical. These are 200 meters apart. They're in the center of CS600. They're basically 235.5 meter composite with a 237.3 meter composite. One's at 1.5 gold equivalent, one's at 1.52, but the individual elements are identical. Basically a 0.87 gold in the first one, a 0.89 gold in the second one, 3.98 silver and a 3.97 silver on the second one, and the coppers are identical at 0.49, both of them at 0.49. So extremely great consistency is the point that this slide comes across. There is a trend from stronger mineralization as you go to the north and northeast, for sure. So this is where we're at. This is why we're open mineralization all the way around, and it's already a monster, so we'll just see where we're gonna kind of chop this thing off. We gotta get to the end soon because people are aware that we have a big deposit, but now we want to show the strength of its grade. So the idea is we are going to push out the volume, but not at the cost of grade. We won't do that. We won't go the other way. We're just going to go to the best internal rate of return. I'll show you how we'll get to that. So when you look at the DS5, the deepest, basically the domain, that one is lying in at varying between 1.2 to say 1.6. But what it does not intake is, it doesn't actually take in the best grades. It's just the overall composite. So we've had no attempt made on that one to actually shrink those 200 meter numbers to 100 meters to get it up to over 2 grams, which we can do. So in essence, it's like, what do you want it to be? And this is a great slide that shows you what did not make the resource. All these are high grade hits. We always get the question, do you ever get high grade? And the answer is, yeah, you do. Typically, in the past, in the center of mass of the previous drilling 2020, there's 49 drill holes in here we drilled, of which 10 had visible gold. Later, in 2021, we drilled about 6 holes here. Every one had visible gold. Now, we thought that was just a random appearance, but we actually plotted them after. But let's just look at each one of these hits. These things are between 1 to 2 ounce hits on the high grade, but they get smeared over. The best one here I can show you is hole 34, 4.5 meters of 21 grams. So 20.86 grams, pretty much gold. That in itself, to me, is enough to design an entire program to chase. And we haven't done that because your spacing has to choke up, everything has to happen. But added to the economic arsenal of the project, we could do that. If we wanted to go to a 1,000-ton per day mill, we could do that. We can take out the high grade on our way down for a sub-level block cave development and take that. CapEx would be something around $1 billion. Not a $2 billion, not a $3 billion project, a $1 billion, something just under that, our estimation. So when you see this thing in its entirety, you see that we call this the northwest trending, rather the northwest stockwork up in the northwest of the system that actually dives down into actually a right. It doesn't really show it, but it actually dips into the northwest aspect. However, the goal here is to optimize the overall metal content. So I think with all these variables of different types of grades, this thing can be many things. It can be attracted to a silver type company, definitely a copper company with 4 billion pounds of copper coming on the horizon, sitting at 2.8. Very good metrics on that. But this is the things that keep me awake at night. Do not understand this. Don't know why that's there. This thing should be back here, that blue copper gold hit. We don't know why that's below that fault. A repeat sequence? I don't know. Does this connect to up to Eureka? Don't know. Could it connect through? Maybe. Will it change the dynamics? Maybe on a pit. Still, we got a lot of lifting to do. Here's another one. Perfect storm I just mentioned, we got a hit on that. What if that turns out to be another 10, 15, 20 million ounces? Don't know. Still exploration on the horizon. A lot of good stuff coming up on press releases. This is what it looks like longitudinally. We haven't put on where we hit way out here in the anomaly, in the peripheral to the main anomaly, so we were too close to the core. This is where the hits are coming. So standing back away from the core, I think, will bring us dividends. So what do we wind up doing this year? Well, here's a summary of it. All those hits are basically in line around 1 gram, north of 1 gram. And these are the results we had this year. So some pretty significant results, strong results in the areas that were not in the resource. Again, not in the resource. So we will look at a scoping study, whether we actually have enough information to deem this to be material. Do we really want to go forward and redo a resource, spend another 43-101, or just paper this right through to going for say a PEA? So to get that, we need to stitch this off, and this is an important slide. We've put 2 pads up in the front of this thing to actually stitch this thing off to the end. All of this, if we can encapsulate this and finish this off, I'll be satisfied. At that point, we can go ahead and start picking the shapes. We can do put the metrics to the economics, do the comminution, which we're undergoing. We're doing the metallurgy. Everything is coming along to actually bring what I think will be a very nice preliminary economic assessment. So this is what the goal is. This is where we're at. So in summation, this is what we do. This is our wheelhouse. We take these projects and we take these things that people just basically missed on. It happened at Bruce Jack Lake. 5 companies came before us. They had 1,000 drill holes into it, 100,000 meters of drilling, and they didn't find it. We found it on drill hole number SU12. So I'm not afraid of going into territory that had lots of drill holes, lots of exploration, and in the end, I think we're going to come up a winner on this one. So again, good thing you're here. You've come for a good deal. So this is it. Questions?